Darkness, Vampire Requiem, a Requiem for London. Tonight, we set the scene within the Members' Lounge of Twickenham Stadium, on the edge of Hounslow, just within the borders. The Hounslow Banshees, ruled by council member Charlie Hood, although she would prefer to say administered to. Much more modern, far less authoritarian sounding. And it is in the Members' Lounge where the local leaders of the movement are set to meet, overlooking the stadium itself. All the seats in the actual field. It's actually quite a nice view. It's strange looking at such a large place, a stadium that's meant to be packed full of people, so empty. It is very, very lonely. But there's also a sense of freedom from it. You can go to all those little places that you could never normally go to, those little staff rooms, back behind the kitchen, behind the till of every single bar in the place. And of course the roof of the stadium. The movement tonight, however, has just decided to settle for the lounge. And that is where this scene shall begin. With 5 members, not 4. We have Charlie, who's accommodating for everybody, Ansel Draper, and of course the one and only, the legend, Rodney Foster. I'll just put their things up for you real quick. And the what you see there.
Yeah.
There's Charlie. There's Draper. And there's Foster. And of course you're present at this round table as well. A glass of vitae just in front of a napkin and knife and a fork, which is entirely superfluous. But it looks lovely.
Yeah.
There is also this woman who appears to have arrived before you.
5 council members?
She has she's wearing a bowler hat with short brown bangs around her head, as sort of around the sides of her face. Pale but soft-looking skin, a long long beige pea coat and a white shirt and a black tie underneath.
Mhm.
Draper will stand. Ah! The man of the hour. I suppose
Uh,
I should. Oh, sorry.
oh no, no, you go, you go. That's fine.
I'm sorry. I should probably make introductions. Chancellor Smith, this is Velvet Trescott, elder of the movement, and my no longer erstwhile sire.
Pleasure to meet you.
Hmm.
Ben will stick out a hand for a handshake.
Pleasure. Pleasure indeed. She will shake your hand. It's a little cold, but other than that, there's nothing about it that is too amiss. You, of course,
Yeah.
can make me a. I don't think you actually need to make me a check here because you have cacophony savvy, don't you?
Yep, Ben is cacophony savvy.
1 second then.
One of the few people who use the cacophony channel, Chris.
Yep,
I actively post there.
1 second. Um, okay, you can roll me intelligence plus streetwise to learn a bit about this individual. You like?
Fant- oh, fantastic, Ben's. Man, is she sounds like, isn't it what's his face's sire?
I have a limited vocal range, so it may
No, no, no,
be
no, 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 no,
wrong.
no. Because it was at like a Elysium where Stanforth was like, I don't like that person to one of the new players, and they were like distantly related to somebody.
You said they didn't like who?
Stanford. He didn't like a. It was like the grandsire of Sacha Corbin. Yeah,
Ah,
well, I got a success.
okay. So
Oh wait, no, I forgot I had a specialty in rumors. Never mind, just continue.
that's fine. You have not only heard of Velvet Trescott, but you've also seen her before. Uh, how old is Benjamin again at this point?
That would be about 15, 16 years, somewhere in
Okay.
that range.
Then, yes, you have been to several of you've been to several of her many gatherings at in Manchester. She had been spending some time there prior to your embrace, and you've known her for a while. You haven't met her, but you've known her in passing, and you definitely recognize her. She is, as Draper says, an elder of the movement, and has been known to travel between various domains, primarily back and forth between London and Manchester, but also to other domains which are not ran by the Carthians.
Mm.
particularly within particularly within England. Sometimes she travels abroad to Ireland and Scotland and Wales, but she's generally kept to England itself. She is very well respected by the movement, to the point where her word on matters of Carthian law are considered legal precedent.
Oh yeah.
She's generally perceived to be very fair, and also rather progressive on matters of Carthian law and sect politics, particularly intersect politics.
Hmm.
No, you just
Well,
go ahead. Oh, sorry.
oh no, no. If the well, once you're done with the information, I'll say what I was going to say.
Okay, good.
No, 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 no. It's in character. It's not.
That's what I mean. I've said everything in
Oh,
character I need to say.
okay. Well, shaking hands like, I was actually embraced in Manchester before moving here. He'll say, well, shaking her hand before pulling
Oh,
away.
were you? It's a shame we did not meet sooner then.
Yes,
Perhaps I would have been able to join you on your journeys down south.
perhaps.
I could have even shown you around the domain, although it has always been an ever-shifting landscape, London.
Yes.
One domain crumbles, another built on top of it.
Hmm.
Like a palace built on top of a mass grave. It's quite grim, really.
Ben just takes a look into Twickenham Stadium very briefly, looking back at her.
She
Yes.
um she gives you an almost knowing look.
He nods. Well then.
Um, so yes, I decided to invite my sire to this meeting as I believe she would have much insight to add into how we may best further our movement's interests within the domain.
Yes.
She's been quite instrumental in setting up the movement elsewhere, so I just felt it would have been rather discourteous to snub her without, at the very least, issuing an invitation first.
Fair enough. He'll nod to Draper.
Rodney is just sort of looking at Draper with half open mouth with a cigar in it. Just half half open eyes. He could not look less convinced. Alright, yeah, sure thing, buddy. That said, I'm happy to have her here. It's been a while, Velvet. It has been. I see you're moving up in the world. Yeah, yeah. Certainly not because I wanted it. Thank these assholes. Uh, then I see my child is doing fine work, is evident. And Charlie, you've made it very far for one so young. I see you're doing your clan proud. Hopefully many more than just my clan. But yes, thank you. I hope you're enjoying the venue. Yeah, thank you. But I would not wish to keep any of you with simple pleasantries. Please, go forward with whatever your agenda is as if I wasn't even here. I do not wish to I do not wish to interfere on the matters of a sovereign domain.
Is Nikolai coming? The Mr. Yeah, Mr. Nikolai. Or Nikolai? Because there's only four of us and there's technically supposed to be five of us. That way he isn't immediately snubbed. Chris, did I come into? Did I
Oh,
come
no.
into?
No?
No,
No, sorry.
no.
Well, you were the last one to get here, and it's already been God knows how long already I've been waiting.
That's fair enough. I just wanted to check. Oh, right, so then who wishes to start? Because I have a couple things. I'm not sure what all you all have.
Well, I actually needed to talk about as the door just swings wide open and slams against the wall. It doesn't fly off its hinges, but it was clearly opened quite wildly. And you see the familiar face of Mr. Nikolai. I'm not sure if you've actually met him before.
Not in character, no, but I'm assuming Ben and him have met at some point.
Just give you a second. There he is. He's an old-looking man in a simple green coat, a zip jumper. Rough around the edges. Thick wrinkles around his eyebrows and cheeks, intermingled with ragged-looking scars. Looks like he's been through a war. But then he's always looked like he's been through a war. And here I thought you were going to start without me. And I see we have another uninvited, or well, I wouldn't know whether you were invited or uninvited. And Trescott, the council here doesn't really deign to tell me anything. I will assume that your child decided to give you an VIP ticket. He'll take a seat. Oh, don't mind me. What were we going to talk about? Or what were you going to talk about?
Oh, no, I was just asking if anybody had anything to say before I go, because I do have a few things. Actually, I think it's mostly two at this point. Two things.
Well, I think we've all got things to say, but if you want to go first, I'm not going to stop you. After all, I was the last to arrive. I suppose it's only fair that I'm the last to say what I need to say.
I mean, if we're going in order of arrival, then I'd be second to last then. An efficient way of doing it, at the very least.
Take the hint and say your fucking piece.
Okay, whatever.
He'll light a cigarette.
God. All right.
Rodney will also light up another cigar using his lighter.
Hold on. All right, Ben will flip through his notes because I need to go through my notes. Oh,
You do
books.
that. You see that two of Charlie's fingers are sort of poking into her forehead as Nikolai takes his seat. Draper just looks somewhat indignant to his presence. Isaiah, however, doesn't really seem to care all that much. Rodney seems to get along with him quite well, as evidenced by them sharing a lighter.
Is that on the next page? Response to 10 for credit.
Should be noted when Nikolai lights or ignites the lighter, pretty much every kindred's eyes are drawn towards it.
And like makes it to the page in his notes, and he's just like starts staring at the lighter.
You just hear the sort of click of the lighter. You recognize the sound, and it's almost like out of instinct, your eyes just sort of dart towards it.
Yeah. Ben probably just squints really hard because he's a maquette that's lost humanity at this point and suffers from his clan bane. He's like, fuck.
Yeah. The only one that doesn't seem particularly bothered is Rodney,
Yeah,
at least by the lighter. And of course Nikolai, given he was the one who ignited it in the first place.
yeah. So, considering that we've established a free council, we haven't had any particular vote on who is on this council since its inception, and even then, I don't think that we did. Correct me if I'm wrong. The end of the war was a blur for me. But I think it's about time that we do stand by our principles and have an election.
Yeah, if you could get me out of the Prime Minister's chair, that would be great, thanks.
Right.
Well, my dear Rodney, I think that's the only seat that isn't going to be in contention, given your reputation.
Yeah.
Fuck.
The impression that I got from the movement, at least in terms of my digging, was it's been long enough.
Well,
Also, considering who's on this council, it isn't particularly, you know, some might call it shady.
Charlie will speak up. It is true. There's been a lot of murmurings within the domain about the five barons.
Yeah.
Less so towards myself, but that is largely because, well, I've been running Hounslow alongside my Kotu for a very long time. Not long, perhaps, by the standards of kindred, but long enough that everybody is used to it.
Yeah.
Certainly that long enough that they appreciate it. In many ways, I think the war may have actually helped us there.
Bet on that.
So I don't think my re-election would really be in contention unless a member of my coterie wished to make a play for it, but one of them is Crone now, and Estella, well, I don't think Estella is interested in the nuances of administration and leadership. And she would say that herself. Much like Rodney here. Although, well, we didn't really have a choice.
Would I know how the opinion of me being in this position would be, being a counselor?
Yeah, you can actually make me a sort of, either wit streetwise or wit politics role to sort of have an understanding of your position.
Okay. Does the role change the information given? Or is
It'd probably be the same, really, in this
okay, then I
situation.
will then I will go with the better dice pool. And then if I'm going with streetwise, does my spec and rumors apply? Because it does change the dice pool.
Yes, it would.
Okay, cool. 5 successes.
Nice. Okay. So, you are viewed within your own territory as diplomatic, fair, but infirm. It is not so much that your area has a problem with you being their counselor. They trust you to represent their interests, or at least speak on their behalf. And they know that you won't interfere on their personal matters unless it is particularly serious or severe. What they do fear about you is perhaps that you are, or they view you to be infirm, easily corralled. That is your reputation, at least.
Hmm.
They believe that you are perhaps too easily influenced by other kindred. And they've also looked inwards to their domain and haven't seen much done to reinvigorate it. Of course, you are working on that situation,
Yeah,
but they have yet to see the results of it, and your work
hmm,
comes late.
yeah,
So those that do know of it don't necessarily have a particularly high opinion of it. And
right.
so there are whispers that perhaps if there is an election, perhaps there should be a stronger hand at the tiller. But it's very much a split domain.
Yeah,
You think your re-election, your reappointment, would be very much up in the air. You definitely have a base of support. You have a lot of lukewarm support.
yeah,
This is where your exceptional success comes into play. You know you have a lot of lukewarm supporters, people who are quite happy to vote for you, but they're not enthusiastic,
yeah,
and are very prone to being browbeat or converted by other more enthusiastic kindred who are looking to more passionate, more more outspoken, uh, not iron-fisted, but more verbose
Yeah.
in their positions. Those who very much epitomise the Carthian stereotype of firebrand. And
Yeah.
unfortunately runs very much contrary to your nature as a cat.
Yeah, yeah. I know that if re-election were to happen, at least me sitting on this council would probably be in contention. I don't cut the same figure that most of the Carthians have. And while I'll say on behalf of myself that somebody needs to be me in the movement, it is not the most immediate popular thing. But I am confident that I would still run again.
Hmm.
I feel like that I owe the rest of the Carthians to do right by them.
Hmm. So you want to run again? Romney says.
I mean, I would. I don't know. It,
Hmm.
even though it isn't the most, I guess, fitting position for me, you know.
Well, if it's not fitting, why
I
run
mean,
for it and not take a more fitting position?
what would be a more fitting position? Unless I don't think we all have a very. God, see, this is the fucking. Do I know offhand how everybody else runs their domain?
Um, I mean, other wits politics. I'll give you your coffee status as bonus dice because, given your work as a counselor,
Yeah, yeah,
you would have some information at the very least. You deal with the politics of other councillors, so you'd have an idea. But whether you have detailed information depends on how much they've spoken to you about it and how much you can remember.
yeah. Because I know that like we have never talked about this before, so
Yeah, so if we can roll, ooh, pardon me. I'll tell you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I know why it isn't pulling up the fucking dice cord. There we go.
You
Dice
did it
cord.
wrong again. You did
God,
it
why the
wrong again.
God damn it! I forgot to put roll in again.
If you
I'm the
do it wrong
literal.
again, I'm making sure I'm saying it's a dramatic failure. Don't back it up.
Damn it, Chris. Don't fuck it up. Don't fuck it up. That was me, all class. Hold on, let's see. Seven
Alright,
successes.
there you go. Alright, so this is what you know. You know that each domain is ran quite differently from the other. Nikolai tends to run his domain very fast and loose, laissez-faire, kind of like yourself. Um, but he is much more present than you are. Um,
Mhm.
he's a gangrel. He's actually had to deal with several challenges to his leadership before, as his laissez-faire attitude has invited other, generally gangrel, but even a Dave or two, to challenge his position of leadership, which he's dealt with quite violently, given
Mhm.
his position as a gangrel and the nature of the challenges being made towards him. This has
Mhm.
generally garnered him a very kind of split, a polarizing reputation within the movement uh, as both ruthless and cruel, but also doing what needs to be done in order to ensure the domain can actually function. Um, and at the very least, as long as you don't fuck with him, you don't lose your head, which is more honest and fair than most domains.
Yeah.
particularly those of his clan, tend to respect that degree of honesty, as it is something that most domains lack, even if it's not exactly utopian.
Right.
Um, so his domain is largely divided up into individual coteries and, for lack of a better term, gangs that run their own territories independently. Although Nikolai has a stake in all of them,
Hmm.
and certainly he runs his own domain as well. You know
Yeah.
that Charlie tends to run hers almost like her. It's quite communal. She runs her domain through her coterie. Each of them serves a purpose. Although recently the loyalty of one coterie member has been thrown into question, as she is no longer a Carthian. She is a member of the Circle of the Crone that retains
Hmm.
ties to the movement. Charlie herself has defended this and even attempted to turn it into an opportunity. There are several members of the Circle within her domain now that reside. There are several members of the Crown now that reside within her domain. Um, not as members of the movement, but those in good standing with the movement. But she generally keeps the focus of the domain very local. She tends to be a frequent face in Hauser and has been known to speak with residents of her domain frequently on the issues that they face. She is generally well regarded in her domain, as despite not being a fighter, she fought tooth and nail for Hounslow during the war and before it, and is generally seen as the biggest mover and shaker within the borough itself, despite her youth. So she is generally well liked. Perhaps more well liked than her, though, is her coterie. You imagine if her coterie turned on her, she'd be much less popular, and she would likely lose her support. But her coterie seems loyal to her, and despite one of their number turning to the Crone, that member, Sadie, Alicat
Alicat
Sire,
Sire. Yeah.
has never supposedly even considered forsaking the coterie, and instead serves almost a religious function within the domain now. Um, Almost a mirror to what the Sanctified would normally serve as.
Hmm.
But each one serves a role, each one serves a function, and each makes sure the domain works. Charlie is the administrator, and as such is the counselor. But her coterie mate Estella almost serves like the sheriff of the area, with her own holdings and her own mortal allies that reinforce her and the coterie as well. With Sadie serving as the street's eyes and ears, and now its more spiritual side, its religious angle. Something that the domain was lacking before. Hounslow is one of the more successful domains within the movement as a result.
Hmm.
As for Rodney, well, he runs it like Nikolai, but it's more centralized. He would be loath
Hmm.
to admit it, but it is. Everybody goes to Rodney for everything, because they're somewhat afraid that if they do something out of line with him, he is an elder and he can and will fuck up their day, if not just kill them. He's generally
Yeah.
tried to avoid doing that, and has tried to avoid getting that reputation, but it's still there
Hmm.
in some capacity or another. It's just inescapable for him. He is too old. He is too powerful for his own good.
Yeah.
Too strong. He's lived too long to be the hero, and is now seen as the necessary villain. Um,
Yeah.
Still, he's generally well liked, and his reputation during the war precedes him.
Hmm.
Um, he's generally seen as, despite being an elder, the one elder that won't just ruin your fucking life on a whim.
Right.
He will generally at least have a reason for going after you. So most
Hmm.
people respect him. Um, he generally runs the domain through various criminal enterprises, as opposed to through raw force. So he's a bit more hands off, um, than Nikolai. who tends to just rule through the blunt end of his claws. But
Yeah.
he's still been known to get his hands dirty. Draper, however, is perhaps the opposite of Boton. He's very indirect.
Hmm.
Um, but he tends to run the domain quite traditionally. Um, like a prince of sorts, or a landlord.
Hmm.
But in a much tries to be more open-minded about it, or at least thinks he is.
Hmm.
And so he's one of the more unpopular councillors, as Carthians tend to chafe against traditional forms of rule.
Yeah.
That said, the amount of mortal influence he had within the area has allowed him to remain in power, for the time
Hmm.
being at least. Some kindred respect him. He was smart enough to remain outside of the greater conflict between the Carthians and the Invictus. And he has a base of support, although it's very lukewarm. He's much like yourself. He's considered a bit more hands-on than you. He's generally more direct. He holds more meetings. He's much more open. But like you, he is not particularly trusted. And as such, his reinstatement would be very much a roll of the dice.
Hmm.
Much like Nikolai's as well. But for different reasons.
Hmm.
Um, that's what you get. You have pretty detailed information on how each one runs their barony now.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
They all have their enemies, but they've so far managed to fend them off. Some
Yeah.
are more significant threats than others. For example, Hounslow hosts few enemies for Charlie.
Yeah.
Um, the Hounslow
And
Banshees, as they're called, because you think it might be because they're a coterie that they're a tough nut to crack.
yeah.
And
Is that if it since they come as a package deal, so it's
yes, they
you know
are.
it's
It is
easy
more.
to overlook one character you like or dislike versus the others.
It's less popularity, more that if someone wanted to make a violent move on them, killing one would alert the others and would almost certainly unite the entire domain against the perpetrators.
Yeah.
That and simply taking on a coterie of kindred is just more practically difficult than taking on one.
Hmm.
Um, but yes, Draper has his advisors, but his little coterie of Primogen tends to attract political chicanery.
And
Bo-
he's the tongue of the domain. Okay. Got it.
Boton's um, constant need to be the alpha of the domain has and but paradoxal laissez-faire attitude has resulted in no short amount of no small amount of internal strife for his domain. But funnily enough, he lacks enemies largely because he's killed them or put them in their place. You know that
Yeah.
Rodney actually has a large number of enemies just because he's the biggest dog in the room.
Yeah.
And he has the target on his back.
But Rodney's also Rodney Foster.
So he's well liked, but he actually has a lot of enemies in spite of his reputation,
Yeah.
in spite of the fact that he's respected and liked, as opposed to because he's a monster. It's because he's just an elder, really.
Yeah. Like in comparison, it's like me, Draper, and uh, Botan are kind of like in a situation, while him and fuck
Charlie.
him and Charlie have better shots. Basically, this is the way that I'm reading this, right?
Yes, Charlie and
Yeah.
Rodney, you think would comfortably be reinstated. You think it
Yeah.
would be hard to dislodge them even if they said no, whereas yourself and other kindred would be much easier to remove. You in particular, don't really have a mechanism of enforcing Carthian law or just the general laws of the domain. You don't have that
Oh yeah.
influence yet.
I got Lex. Did we ever finish the Lex Trace thing? Because I thought I did that. Did I not do that?
Let me check your character sheet. You might have it, but
I have Lex Trace. I got it a while ago when you made the point of like, yeah, Ben, you don't have any Carthian law. And I'm like, okay, I'm buying it. I'm buying the Lex Trace.
I don't think you've implemented anything with that law yet. I know you've had plans.
Oh, I think I just got swept under with all the other blue books.
Anywho, though, that is the current
Okay.
position you are in. It is tenuous, but workable. It is manageable. Um,
I mean, if we're talking about positions that exist very formally, there's really only the councillors. Ostensibly, everybody just works with the people they work with. It, to me, this position isn't a matter of, how do I put it? There's nothing I gain from being in this position, right? It is, to me, a duty to serve the people. If I've done a good job of that is up for the people to decide. Which is why I would want to run again. Which may be incredibly naive and idealistic, but it is the way that I view things.
while this is all going on, you can see that Velvet is drinking from the wine glass, sipping elegantly.
Mm-hmm. If we don't have any objection against having an election, we should, at the very least, set term limits, or at least a time where we will hold votes for leadership. That way, it's a more constant thing rather than when the council decides, and maybe it's about time that we do this. That way, the system keeps itself going, at the very least. And to make sure that the people that we represent, and to make sure that we are the people that our people wish to have represent them.
I agree. I agree. I think it's been a while since, well, the movement has felt represented, and there needs to be a change.
Yeah,
Because go how we are, well, we're surviving, but we're not moving things forward, and that's what the movement always needs to be doing. It's called a movement for a reason. We move things forward, we push things forward, and if we can't push things forward, we fucking punch it into moving into the right direction. That's what we fucking do.
yeah.
We're not doing that right now.
Well,
We're still licking our wounds from 10 years ago.
yeah.
I'm inclined to
Well,
agree.
um, I actually do have something that might be beneficial for that direction then. As I mentioned earlier, Primogen Folks is scalping some of Rodney's territory, specifically where Raj is, around the Little India area. But Primogen Folks isn't just doing it to in that area. They're also taking a chunk out of we'll out of Primogen Python's domain and one of her own domains. Just give me 1 second to double check my notes. Blah, 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 blah. happening in Southwark, Illingsden, and Camden. I feel like this is a good opportunity for the Carthians to show that they are a positive force of change in that regard, willing to assist assist in these matters, and in turn, they'll probably like us a bit more. Or the other covenants will have a better view of us rather than just being those people who got the shit kicked out of them 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly a fan of some fucking Lickford Invictus coming down from his ivory tower and trying to fuck up my fucking area.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not really in a position to deal with that. I mean, I could throw a Molotov at his fucking bank or some shit, but
Well,
deal in the exchange of, well, just fucking electronic numbers.
yeah. I think that we're in an interesting position, but considering that two of the territories that are being affected by this are two of the other Primogen.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a fucking slam dunk for us then.
Yeah.
I bet he was relying on not getting fucking caught.
Yes, unfortunately, I'm the world's greatest detective.
True, but how do we work this to our advantage? I mean, because all you can do is you can just spin this as I'm just doing business. I'm just doing what I do. I'm not taking your domain or anything like that. I'm not fucking with you. I'm just doing what any other predatory financial institution would do, which is taking people's fucking homes away, and some of them happen to be kindred havens because they're stupid and can't pay their
But
bills.
also,
What stops them
it
from
also,
saying that?
well, here's the thing. Primogen Folks is doing this while there are hunters in the CTC. On top of already fucking with kindred domains. It's also a good idea to show why the Carthians are so appealing as an ideology and as a movement to follow. You might not convert people to it, but at least show them as favorable to not wanting to stand up to blatant corruption within a system, or is willing to stand up to blatant corruption within a system.
I understand, Charlie says, but while we can spin this politically to our advantage, I don't want this to be just another. We lost the battle, but we won the moral victory. If you understand what I'm saying.
I understand. This is also why I bring this to all of you, because I know that, I have what I'm particularly good at, but there's a reason why there's 5 of us. I'm planning on trying to at least investigate Primogen Firth's and Python's domains just to see what's going on there, to get a better understanding. If these are more direct attacks against the Primogen, then it might be easy to get the other Primogen to turn on Folk. In that respect. Well, that was probably phrasing it. Whatever.
Trescott will just put down her now actually half empty glass of blood. And she'll just say, have you considered integrating with the rest of the domain?
I have not considered it. At least I think you mean beyond there just being a Carthian free state that kind of exists attached to the rest of the domain, yeah.
Yes. From what I've been hearing, it seems like half of your problems could be resolved by actively participating within the workings of the local court as opposed to standing segregate from it. It is much more difficult to invoke change from without than it is from within. Carthians aren't incentivized to go into the inner city and make claims in territories of their own, gain influence, because they don't feel secure outside of the borders of the current Carthian island. Not only that, but how are they supposed to stand up for themselves when that is true? They are not. And no Carthian will ever hold a position outside of this island so long as it persists. There will be no Carthian sheriffs, no Carthian barons or primogen. No archons. Not even a Carthian harpy. It seems as if and I do not wish to speak out of turn, but it seems as if the movement here has trapped itself. Yes, this is an impressive achievement to hold such a territory from the sway of the invictus within the domain, but can you be certain in saying even that, considering what we have just discussed regarding the primogen? Even if you prevent it now and build your reputation, you will still be those Carthians on the west side of London with their little island. The local North Korea.
I think you have an excellent point, honestly.
Charlie will say, how do we go about implementing that though? There's a lot of questions there, it's a fine idea. At a stretch. But what would that mean for us? We have this council. There are 5 of us, we will each run a borough each. And while it is not perfect, it works. And the movement has their say on who runs those territories, which is more than the rest of the domain can say. But that would be a matter of diplomacy. Simply approach the king and queen with an offer. You're willing to integrate with the domain proper and subject Carthians to the laws of the domain, and make it such that these boroughs are no longer independent territories, but the cost is that they have a Carthian baron. For as long as they exist. Which I think would be a fair trade, and frankly, if you weren't able to negotiate that, well, I would rather just give up on this little experiment here, wait a couple of centuries and then return when adults have taken the reins of the situation. I certainly hope you're not calling any of us weak. Not at all. It is merely a suggestion. Benjamin have anything to say on this matter?
I mean, Ben said before that he agrees that he like we are isolating ourselves. It does make it a bit harder to interact with the domain as a whole.
It's true. Few kindred outside of the movement want to live here, and while that in many ways is what we wanted initially, it does prevent us from really making any inroads with other sects. I remember a time when the Crone and the Carthians were good friends. That was 10 years ago. Now we are just not acolytes.
I feel like giving what seems to be the current political situation with, or at least whatever Fox is doing, it would give us an easy in back with a lot of these covenants, especially if we have the capacity to have meaningful change within, make meaningful change within the city. It's not perfect by any means, but it's something.
It would be a start.
Yes.
Before I went, before I spent a few decades in Manchester, I was present here. I remember the war before the last one. Many times has the movement tried to take over London by force. But it is too big. The domain is too large, and there are too many kindred. And there are too many invictors. I have, however, been to domains where the movement and the invictors have been able to come to a detente. In some cases, I've even convinced them to work with us. That was the case in Nottingham. Not all invictors are hostile to our ways. Some simply want to initiate change from within. Well, you lost me there. But I don't think it's the worst idea. I think the risk to it is that we just end up sort of putting ourselves and what we've managed to protect on a silver platter to the Invictus. We already don't have that much. We lost too much from the last war. We can't afford to give up anything else.
In all fairness, I think the Invictus are going to come for what we have, regardless of if we are or aren't a part of the city. If Primogen Folks' digs at your domain are to be believed, or
Well,
are to be taken.
regardless of what we decide here, we're putting a stop to that one way or the other.
Yeah. All I'm saying is that regardless of us being a part of it or not a part of it, the Invictus are still going to come after us one way or another. And I know it's me saying this, so it's probably cruelly ironic. Sometimes you just gotta, take the risk. I think there is more to gain by reintegrating back into the domain as a whole than sitting here with what we have. That's my personal opinion, though. And while this is secure enough, it is hard to make moves outside of just here. Or perhaps that if we are going to have an election anyways, we should maybe table this until hands have been switched. Those are just my thoughts, though.
There's also the question of who would lead the barony, so to speak.
Way that I see it, you could either have it just be the head counselor, in the sense of they are the overarching law of the barony. Well, actually, no, it would just be the head counselor. Or you'd have the head counselor not have have the entirety of the Carthian territory as theirs, in air quotes, theirs, and then each of the 5 boroughs that we have 4 boroughs. Yeah, then it would just be the head council now, wouldn't it? Or we can just have a separate position, which is the overarching, like, authority in that capacity.
Oh, the leader of the movement would not be the same as the leader of the barony unless that is what we decided.
Fair enough. Then perhaps that this should be something that we hold votes for, see, or at least gather information from everybody else to see how they feel about it.
I believe it would be a fairer system, at least for the barony of this domain, that whomever was appointed the baron be subject to the will of the people in regards to local laws. Of course, one cannot change the overarching laws of the domain, but what those of this barony decide should be what goes.
And we'll nod in agreement.
So who runs the barony then? He just says, smiling ear to ear, as if he knows the implication of this question.
I'm assuming that would come to a vote. Yeah? So I would do it.
He lights up his cigar. Who are you voting for?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
Got a fair number of candidates in front of you. And for the record, this time I'm not running. If you just say I'm going to vote for Rodney, I'm just going to say fuck off and not do it.
oh, don't worry, Rodney. You'll always be the Baron of my heart. Don't worry.
One
No
barony
matter
I'll
who.
accept.
If we're going by honestly, if we're talking Baron and not Primogen. Charlie. For all that, I think, honestly, between everybody here, outside of Foster, Charlie runs the most fair domain. Can't even claim that for myself. I think Draper would also be my second choice, purely because I think that his style of governance would be more accepted by the rest of the barons and the city structure at large. Also, if Miss... Fuck, I forgot her name, Chris.
She's on the Discord.
What? Put her name down? No, you didn't.
Charlie.
Oh, Violet. No. I already said Charlie. I was saying that Charlie. That was Violet. Is her name Violet? No.
It's Velvet.
Velvet. Okay.
Velvet
Close
Chestnut.
Yeah. If Miss... I also don't think Miss Trustnut... Well... I don't think Miss Trustnut would be a bad choice either, but I feel like Charlie has the most goodwill with the people who are already here. Those are my thoughts. Anyways.
Record.
Velvet will... Charlie. She is young, but she would make a fine choice. She has the support of many kindred around her, perhaps more importantly, the loyalty of many kindred around her. Oh, I'm sorry. Velvet does not
You okay,
talk.
man?
Then there remains but one question, outside of the matters of diplomacy, which will no doubt involve most of us. Matters of Carthian law will still need to be judged upon and resolved. There will need to be trustworthy kindred able to take on that position. This is not a matter that other baronies will have. For they do not have Carthian rulers. However, we will have to approach this issue. My word is respected, and I am considered a neutral party by and large. If necessary, I can resolve such disputes between kindred here. I suppose nobody has a problem with this. Excellent. So, is there anything else we wish to discuss?
I'm pretty sure that I have covered everything that I had on my little agenda. So if there's anybody else.
I do, John says. Relates to the matters that you have spoken of. Ben.
Yeah.
The CCT inside our police force. An increasing number of kindred within the inner city disappearing. It has yet to affect us substantially, but I fear that these disappearances are being organized by mortals.
That, based off of what, actually, thank you for bringing this up because I forgot. Based on what Alley Cat and Natalia were able to surmise, that seems to be the case.
I have
So,
noticed that less and less is being shared with my enforcers within the PD. And I've noticed a heavier presence of our police forces. Riot police and armored vans. And firearms command teams. Many of them are not being deployed to specific calls, though. I'm concerned they're beginning to set up for something large. If they are hunters, if this is being organized by mortals, then we need to act to countermand this before the movement pays the toll. We are lucky in that only a few of us have so far been affected at all. Perhaps it is because we are so far on the fringes of the domain that we have yet to be noticed. But I fear if the mortal populace is aware, then it is only a matter of time. The masquerade has to be repaired before it is too late for all of us.
I don't want another situation like Balthazar got into.
I don't know that name. What happened?
He is an Invictus Deva, I'm pretty sure. From what I could gather, a news report. Let's see. There was a violent. No, that wasn't it. West Harrow. It was a disappearance in. No? What the fuck is it? It was in the news, right? City Council, Weekly Ambassador. What the fuck is it? CTC. There we go. It was reported as a terrorist attack on September 13th, 2021. It was in the heart of Westminster. There was a rooftop shootout, just minutes away from the Ministry of Justice.
Oh, this was on the news, wasn't it?
Yes.
Oh,
And then the only reason I know it's specifically Balthazar is that he goes on about in the cacophony being like, oh, PMC's doing this. And I'm like, I've fucking told you all about this twice. So, might be a little salty.
He was on the news getting shot at.
Yes.
Minutes from the Department of Justice.
Yes.
Then we are already months behind the clock. If not
Yes.
years.
Yeah, I have been trying to get with the Crone Sheriff about this. However, apparently it's been easier to put together this fucking meeting. I'm also a recluse. It's not. Anyways. I
If you need me
am.
to get a hold of Sully, I can. We are of the same clan. We are acquainted.
Alley Cat, myself, and Natalia already have something scheduled with him.
That is good. You will want
Yeah.
to hear this.
Yes. I'll make sure that he is fully updated.
Who is this Balthazar? You said he was in Invictus Deva? What else do you know about
Victus,
him?
apparently had Bagman's phone number. He was helping me and a few others with a Revenant issue. That's also some nasty business. Terrible. Oh,
What about him, though?
about him specifically? I think he owns a casino. Yeah, he owns the casino. There was a news spot about it. Yeah, it was on the evening's time. He opened the Les Ambassadeurs Club. He was apparently a host there. That is all I know. I can gather more on him if you like.
She pinches the bridge of her nose. No matter then. But if they're already openly targeting kindred like this in heavily populated areas, then we need to react quickly. We need to find out who these people are and who they're working for.
Yeah. The powers expanded since they targeted Hu Chao a while back. It was under the pretense of drug dealing, if I remember. Even though they had very shoddy evidence at best.
And we need to start taking note of what kindred appear to be flagged by this group and ordering them to go to ground. We can't have them exposing themselves to this amount of risk.
Yeah.
I, for my part, will lay my contacts dormant for now. Have a feeling they may be probing the PD for a response.
Yeah.
And then they'll know how to remove. They'll know who to remove. And they may even be able to use those individuals to trace us.
Yep.
And I have no intention of being betrayed by my own contacts.
Ben will nod.
I would suggest, Rodney, that perhaps you put some of your races on hold for the moment. I know you're confident, and you are, of course, an elder of the movement, but Counterterrorism Command is nothing to play with. They are well armed and dangerous even when ignorant. If there is an organization of them that are aware, I would not rate our chances in direct conflict. Yeah, this is pretty fucking bad. Alright. I think that's what we do. We get in touch with our people, and we put them to bed for the time being. No reaching out and trying to pull any gnarly shit. No big power plays. No stock market crashes. No big races. No shootouts. No big deals. No nothing. If there are hunters on the lookout and they're gathering en masse, then I'll say this. We do not survive, as long as I have, by going loud. We go quiet. And if you're gonna do something, make sure it's quiet, and you make sure it's small in scope, and you make sure it's nice and slow. Don't go bombing the PD commissioner's car or some shit. If all you're saying is true, then the Met's going to be jittery enough.
Yeah.
But if we know who they're going after, that may give us an advantage. Then we may be able to pull things back our way. At least on our end.
Yeah.
They were looking in the Huo Chao.
Yeah. I was still gonna help him out.
Alright. I get in touch with him. Has he been in touch with you recently?
Not. It's a question, Chris. Time goes by like normal time in game, right?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay. Then it's been about, I think, a month. I'll get back in touch with him.
We should.
Yeah.
Right now, we have no way to know if he's alive or dead. And
Yeah.
it's not quiet.
Yeah, that's a good point. That much.
I don't think there's much else to discuss here then.
Miss Botan, you said that you'd go last. You got anything?
Bloody
Then we'll look.
guillotines up and about. You mentioned Luo Chao. I can tell you he's well and truly fucking alive. The guillotines in Jungle are getting rowdy again.
Yeah.
I think they wanted, some sort of say in who was going to, be running the show around here. I think you integrating with if the old man isn't gonna prove too popular with them. Might want to be prepared to deal with that.
We could also hold off integrating until we have a vote on the council. Until we have a vote on who is on the council still.
If that's true, I'm simply going to be having this discussion with the next council again.
Probably. Unless we're all still here.
Well, what I'm saying is that it wouldn't really make much sense for me to even float this as an idea to you all if you're all going to simply ignore it after agreeing.
Yeah.
So I would suggest you at least respect me by making a decision, be it one way or the other. I would not begrudge you if you chose to vote against, but do not act with indecision. That is how the movement dies.
It's gonna try and gauge everybody and see how they're feeling about reintegration.
Rodney's down, if only because it gets him out of the hot seat.
Fair enough.
Charlie seems to be approve of the idea, but whether that's because it's getting her a bigger position of power or not, you're not entirely sure. Obviously, Velvet
Fair.
floated the idea, so she seems to be in favour.
Yeah.
Bolton doesn't seem to approve, or Nikolai rather.
Yeah.
Largely because, as he's saying, there'll be fallout, and he just doesn't want to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to be that, from his implication, seems to suggest that he would take the majority of the fallout. As for Draper, he's actually said very little.
Can I roll me that sweet wits empathy? See if I can gauge just from body language. Hello, friend.
Hello? Yeah? What do you get?
Oh, do you let me roll? I don't.
Yeah,
You muted. Yeah. Me, it's like Ben is doing exactly what he's good at. And I would motives apply? With my specialty in motives, Chris.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would apply here.
Oh, nice. God damn, I keep making the same mistake. God damn it. I don't. I'm sorry, Chris. Sorry I'm like this.
Do it again, or dramatic fail.
God damn it. 4 successes.
God. So what specifically are you looking for again?
He's trying to gauge specifically how he feels about reintegration. That is what he's trying to figure out.
Ah, yeah, Draper.
Draper, yeah.
Draper has never been verbose, but he's never been quiet either.
Mm-hmm.
You think? You think he's just deferring to his sire? But if you called that out, you might be able to convince him to go against.
Yeah. Me just trying to figure out. God damn it. I roll shit. I'm trying to think here. Trying to navigate this tense political situation that may happen. How much of the guillotines exist within the Carthians still?
Enough to be an irritant, not enough to actually seize power.
Trying to think. Because I'm like gauging if it's worth trampling them again. That's kind of what Ben wants to avoid. But he also thinks that, like, holistically, the movement's just kind of sitting here doing nothing. So it's just really awkward.
IDMD.
Yeah, I saw. Ben's gonna look at Draper. Draper, what do you think?
I think the
Keep
idea
it
of
quiet.
integration holds merit. Of course, all major changes have bumps in the road, but such things are as they are.
You said it has merit. That's it's a pleasant way of saying it, but that's not necessarily agreeing with it. Like, for example, I can say taking out all the guillotines has merit. It's a terrible. The idea has merit, and I don't agree with the idea at all.
It very much does, Nikolai says.
I mean, it does. It does, but look, the point I'm trying to get at is that it's not necessarily your thought. I think, on the whole, the way that I see it is that I think reintegration is a good idea. But if we are going to hold a vote so close to the decision, that's not a good look at all. Actually, no, I agree with the decision. Never mind. I think that we should go through with it. But Draper, I want you to say that it is your decision.
It is my decision.
Okay. Fantastic.
I think this will open up many opportunities for the movement, although I understand if there are concerns from various members of the movement here.
I need to talk to you. Yeah.
No change worth fighting for is ever easy. I'd be more than happy to assist in smoothing over such wounded parties if necessary, and I really should reacquaint myself with the movement here.
Yeah. That would be good. I probably should talk to Hugh Chow. I think I can get him on board. I think.
Excellent. I could be present for the meeting, I'd very much appreciate it.
With me meeting with you, Chow? Just to make sure. Right, that's. I think personally, I think that Hugh Chow should. I am fine with it. However, Hugh Chow should also be okay with it.
You can't please everybody.
Yeah. Is Hugh Chow one of Ben's effective constituents?
Basically.
Okay. Then I would recommend meeting him on your own timeline. This is a matter of me being honest with somebody who frankly has no reason to like me at all. Whatever he does is whatever he does. And I wouldn't want to pressure him further than I already have.
Very well. Okay. I believe I should get going and arrange said meeting then. I shall be seeing all of you later. Good evening to all of you. And a pleasure to see you again, my child, and Rodney.
Oh, I have one question. Have you seen my sire, Allison? Thatcher? Is she around Manchester somewhere? I'm just curious.
When she wants to be seen, she is.
You know, that sounds like her. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Good night, Mr. Smith.
Good night.
With that, as the meeting begins to adjourn, I think we can end the scene there.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. See you all next time. Bye bye.